A single traffic stop in New York can now do more than ruin your day. It can drain your bank account, raise your insurance, and push your license towards suspension. And here is the part most drivers still do not fully understand. On February 16, 2026, New York increased points for several serious violations and expanded the DMV look-back window from 18 months to 24 months. That means one mistake does not fade as fast as many people think. So ask yourself this: are you still driving by old rules in a new enforcement system? Because in 2026, a quick speed burst, one phone glance, or one careless move near a school bus or construction zone can hit harder than before. What looks like a small ticket on the road can turn into points, fines, surcharges, and long-term financial pain that follows you for months. In this video, we will break down 10 New York traffic laws in 2026 that could quietly empty your wallet. Some are new, some are tougher, and some have been sitting there like a trap most people never see until it is too late. Stay with us, because law number may first be the one drivers underestimate the most. Number 1. Shift from mandatory to voluntary digital ID. One of the most misunderstood changes in the driving world is the shift from fear of a mandatory digital future to a system that looks more voluntary, but still carries pressure. In New York, mobile ID, known as MID, is an optional digital version of a state license or permit, not a replacement for the physical card. That sounds harmless at first, but this is where many drivers get confused. They think showing a phone is always enough. In reality, the risk starts when drivers rely on convenience instead of certainty, and one wrong assumption can lead to delays, disputes, or costly mistakes for everyday New York drivers. New York's own DMV makes the situation clear. MID is free and optional, but it does not replace your physical license, and not all law enforcement agencies accept it. That means a driver who assumes digital ID works everywhere could still end up in a stressful roadside situation. Imagine reaching for your phone, believing you are fully covered, only to hear that the officer still expects the physical document. Now the stop gets longer, tension rises, questions multiply, and once confusion enters the moment, even a small traffic issue can become a more expensive problem. So the real warning here is simple. Voluntary does not mean risk-free. Digital ID may be convenient and modern, but smart drivers should treat it as a backup layer, not a full replacement. In 2026, the people most likely to lose money are often not reckless drivers. They are the drivers who feel overconfident, trust the app too much, and discover too late that convenience is not the same thing as legal protection. That is how a modern system can look easier on the surface while becoming more dangerous underneath. Number 2. Speeding in construction zones. A lot of New York drivers still treat construction zones like normal road space with a few orange signs on the side. That is a dangerous mistake in 2026. These areas are now one of the easiest places to lose money fast, because the state is treating them with far more seriousness than before. The reason is simple. Construction zones are packed with risk. Lanes shift without warning. Barriers squeeze traffic into tighter spaces. Workers may be only a few feet away from moving cars. And one quick decision, one late break, or one burst of speed can suddenly turn into a ticket that feels far more painful than many drivers expect. What makes this worse is that many people do not even realize the penalty has changed until they are already dealing with the damage. This is where the real trap begins. In 2026, speeding in a construction zone can now bring 8 points on your driving record in New York. That is not a light penalty. That is the kind of hit that can push a driver much closer to license trouble, insurance pain, and long-term financial stress. A person might think, I was only moving a little faster to get past traffic. But the system may treat that moment very differently. And when points start stacking, the cost is not just the ticket itself. It can grow into surcharges, higher insurance bills, and fear every time another stop happens. One rushed moment can create months of punishment. The deeper danger is psychological. Drivers often lose focus in construction zones because they are impatient, confused, or mentally tired. They see cones, narrow lanes, flashing lights, and slow traffic, and they just want out. But that emotional reaction is exactly what makes these zones expensive. In 2026, New York is sending a clear message. Roadwork areas are no longer minor warning zones. They are financial danger zones. The smartest drivers will not just slow down. They will treat every construction stretch like a hidden checkpoint where one mistake can hit their wallet harder than they ever imagined. Number 3. Phone use behind the wheel. For many drivers in New York, the most expensive habit is not speeding, racing, or running a red light. It is something far more ordinary. It is the quiet, almost automatic urge to look at a phone for just a second. A message pops up. A map changes direction. A call comes in. A social media alert flashes on the screen. And in that tiny moment, the driver tells himself the same dangerous lie. This will only take a second. That is exactly why this law empties wallets so easily. It does not target rare behavior. It targets a daily habit that millions of people now treat as normal. In 2026, that habit is still one of the fastest ways to turn a routine drive into a costly mistake that follows you long after the stop is over. What makes this even more dangerous is how small the action feels compared to how big the punishment can become. A driver may think he is still in control because one hand is on the wheel and his eyes only dropped for a moment. But the law sees something else. It sees distraction. It sees delayed reaction. It sees a vehicle moving without full attention. And once that stop happens, the damage begins to spread. There is the ticket, then the points, then the risk of rising insurance. Suddenly, one glance becomes a chain reaction that drains money in silence. The real cost is not just the fine. It is everything that comes after it. That is why so many drivers underestimate this law until they are already paying for it. The hidden danger is that phone use feels modern, harmless, and deeply personal. People trust their devices more than ever. They use them for work, family, directions, and emergencies. So when the law steps in, many drivers feel frustrated because they do not see themselves as reckless. But New York does not care whether the distraction came from texting, scrolling, tapping a map, or checking a notification. The message is clear. If your phone takes your focus, your wallet may pay the price. In 2026, this is not just a safety rule. It is one of the clearest examples of how everyday behavior can quietly become one of the most expensive habits on the road. Number 4. Passing a stopped school bus. Some traffic laws feel strict. This one feels personal. Because the moment a driver passes a stopped school bus, the law is no longer just looking at speed or lane position. It is looking at risk to children. That is why this violation can hit so hard in New York. A lot of drivers do not break this rule because they are trying to be reckless. They break it because they are distracted, impatient, or confused about when they are supposed to stop. They see flashing lights, hesitate for half a second, then keep moving. That half-second decision can become one of the most expensive mistakes on the road. And the worst part is that many people do not realize how serious it is until the ticket, the fine, and the consequences are already in front of them. What makes this law so brutal is that it leaves very little room for excuses. The system does not care if the driver was in a rush, did not see clearly, or believed the road was wide enough to keep going. Once a stopped school bus is involved, the law treats the mistake as a major threat, not a minor misunderstanding. That is why the financial hit can feel shocking. One careless move near a school bus can cost far more than drivers expect. And when money leaves your pocket that fast, the emotional damage also grows. People replay the moment in their minds. They wonder if they missed the sign, misunderstood the distance, or simply acted too quickly. But by then, the damage is done. The hidden lesson here is simple. The most expensive traffic laws are often the ones tied to vulnerable people. New York wants drivers to feel pressure in these moments because the state wants maximum caution where children are present. That means this is not just a road rule. It is a high-alert zone where the smallest lapse in judgment can become a financial disaster. In 2026, smart drivers need to treat every stopped school bus like a full warning siren to their wallet. If the bus stops, your impatience must stop too. Otherwise, one thoughtless second could turn into a punishment you remember for a very long time. Number 5. DWI and drug-impaired driving penalties. Some drivers still think the biggest danger of drinking before driving is the stop itself. It is not. The real danger is what happens after that stop, when one bad decision begins to tear through your money, your license, your routine, and your future. In New York, alcohol and drug-related driving offenses are not treated like ordinary traffic mistakes. They are treated like a major threat to public safety, and that means the financial pain can be sharp, fast, and deeply lasting. A driver may think he is only slightly impaired, only a few minutes from home, only making a small risk. But the law does not measure that moment by confidence. It measures it by danger. And once the system decides you cross that line, the punishment can become one of the heaviest wallet hits on this entire list. What makes this especially brutal is that the money loss is only the beginning. First comes the fine. Then come added costs that people often forget to count, like legal fees, higher insurance, license problems, court requirements, and the stress of trying to rebuild normal life after one serious charge. Even before the full process ends, the driver may already feel trapped. Work becomes harder. Family pressure rises. Every phone call feels serious. Every letter in the mail feels expensive. This is how one night can turn into months of financial damage. That is why this law empties wallets so effectively. It does not just punish the act. It creates a chain reaction that keeps collecting payment long after the road stop is over. The hidden danger is overconfidence. Many people who end up in this situation never saw themselves as reckless drivers. They thought they were still alert. They thought they could manage the distance. They thought they had done it before and stayed fine. But in 2026, New York's message is harsh and clear. If alcohol or drugs affect your driving, the state is ready to hit hard. This is one of the fastest ways to lose control of your finances through a single traffic event. Smart drivers do not wait to learn this lesson through punishment. They decide early that no ride is worth that kind of cost. Which of these New York traffic laws shocked you the most? And which one do you think catches everyday drivers the easiest? Drop your answer in the comments, because your view might help someone avoid a costly mistake. We put a lot of deep effort and research into making videos like this, so please subscribe to the channel and support our work. It takes just one click, but it helps us bring you more powerful updates like this. Number 6. The Driver Responsibility Assessment Trap. Some traffic penalties in New York hit you once and then fade. This one does not. This one waits in the background like a second bill most drivers never see coming. It is called the Driver Responsibility Assessment, and for many people it feels like a punishment layered on top of punishment. You get the ticket, you face the points, you worry about insurance, and then later the system comes back for more money. That is why this law trap is so dangerous in 2026. It does not always explode in one dramatic moment. Instead, it drains your wallet slowly, quietly, and repeatedly. A lot of drivers think the case is over once they pay the first fine. But then another cost enters the picture, and suddenly what looked like one mistake turns into a long financial leak. That is how ordinary drivers get trapped by a system they never fully saw coming. What makes this so brutal is the timing. The assessment usually does not feel connected to the stress of the original stop because it can arrive after the driver has already tried to move on. By then, they may think the damage is behind them. But New York treats point accumulation like a deeper warning sign, and that is where the real pressure builds. A driver who stacks too many points in a short period can find out that the ticket was only the first hit. Then comes the assessment, and it can continue year after year for a period of time. That is when frustration turns into panic. You are no longer paying for one mistake. You are paying for a pattern the system believes is dangerous. And once that label starts forming around your record, the road ahead becomes more expensive in ways many people never planned for. The hidden danger here is not wild driving. It is repeated carelessness. A few small violations can look harmless when viewed one by one. Maybe one speeding ticket here, one distracted driving stop there, one rushed mistake somewhere else. But when the state adds them together, it tells a very different story. In 2026, smart New York drivers need to understand that the wallet damage is often not caused by one dramatic violation. It is caused by the stacking effect. That is why this law belongs on the list. It teaches a hard truth. When points pile up, your financial pain can keep growing long after the road stop is over. Number 7. Seat belt and child restraint violations. Some drivers still treat seatbelt rules like a small detail, the kind of thing that only matters on long trips or high-speed roads. That way of thinking can become expensive very quickly in New York. These laws do not wait for a crash to matter. They begin to matter the second a driver decides comfort is more important than compliance, or the second a child is placed in a seat without the right protection. That is what makes this violation so dangerous. It often begins in the most ordinary moments. A short drive to the store, a quick school run, a ride through a neighborhood that feels safe and familiar. And because the trip feels small, the driver lowers his guard. That is exactly when small habits turn into costly problems. What makes these violations hit harder is the emotional side of them. When the law focuses on seatbelts and child restraints, it is not just looking at rules. It is looking at responsibility. That means the mistake feels heavier the moment it is exposed. A driver may tell himself he was only going a few minutes away, or that the child was uncomfortable, or that everyone was in a rush. But none of those reasons help once the stop happens. The officer sees a preventable safety failure, and the system treats it as something that should never have happened in the first place. The ticket may look small at first, but the real damage is the message attached to it. It tells the state that the driver ignored one of the most basic protections on the road. The deeper lesson is simple. The most basic laws are often the ones people disrespect the most. That is why they become wallet traps. Drivers prepare for speeding laws, phone laws, and alcohol laws because those feel serious. But seatbelt and child restraint rules often get pushed into the background, even though they can still bring fines, points, and unwanted attention. In 2026, smart drivers in New York need to stop thinking of these as minor rules. They are daily discipline rules. And when that discipline breaks, the cost is not just financial. It becomes a reminder that carelessness inside the car can be just as expensive as carelessness on the road. Number 8. School zone and speed camera fines. A lot of drivers still think camera enforcement is just a background system, something easy to ignore because there is no officer standing on the roadside. That thinking can get very expensive in New York. School zones and speed camera areas are designed to catch the kind of mistake that feels small in the moment but costly later. A driver may not feel reckless at all. Maybe the road looks empty. Maybe school is not in session. Maybe the car only drifted a little over the limit. But the system does not measure the moment by how harmless it felt. It measures speed, location, and timing. Then the notice arrives later, cold and official, and suddenly a short stretch of road becomes a direct hit to the wallet. That is what makes camera-based enforcement so dangerous. It punishes after the moment has already passed. What makes this trap worse is how easy it is to repeat. A person can drive the same route every day, make the same rush decision every morning, and keep feeding money into the same system without changing the habit fast enough. That is why camera zones are so effective. They do not rely on emotion or warnings in the moment. They rely on routine. And routine is where many drivers become careless. They get used to the road. They trust their own timing. They assume they know where the risk begins and ends. But in 2026, that confidence can become very costly. One familiar road can quietly turn into a repeat payment zone if a driver keeps treating the speed limit like a suggestion instead of a hard boundary. The deeper danger is mental laziness. Camera enforcement exposes the drivers who stop paying attention because nothing dramatic seems to be happening around them. No traffic stop. No flashing lights behind them. No immediate confrontation. Just a delayed financial hit that shows up after the mistake is already done. That delay makes the pain feel even more frustrating, because by then there is no quick explanation, no second chance, and no way to talk your way out of it. In New York, smart drivers in 2026 need to understand one thing very clearly. If a zone is watched, every extra mile can become a money problem. And the most expensive camera ticket is often not the first one. It is the one that proves you never changed the habit. Number 9. Red light and bus lane camera violations. Some New York drivers still believe the most expensive tickets come from the mistakes they can see coming. But red light and bus lane violations work differently. These are the traps that catch people in rushed, everyday moments when their judgment slips for just a second. A driver is running late. Traffic is building. Pressure is rising. and suddenly a yellow light looks like a chance instead of a warning. Or a bus lane looks open, harmless, and easy to use for a few seconds just to move ahead. That is where the danger begins. What feels like a shortcut in the moment can become a direct payment later. And because these systems often rely on cameras, the driver may leave the scene thinking nothing happened at all, only to find out later that the road quietly recorded the mistake and sent the bill. What makes these violations so painful is that they often grow out of emotional driving, not criminal driving. The person behind the wheel is not thinking about traffic law theory. They are thinking about getting to work, reaching home, picking someone up, or escaping a jammed lane. That is why the violation feels so ordinary right before it becomes expensive. Red light mistakes are often born from impatience. Bus lane mistakes are often born from frustration. But the system does not care what mood caused the move. It only sees the action, records it, and turns it into a penalty. That is why so many drivers feel blindsided. They did not think they were making a major choice, but the law treats that brief choice as a clear violation with a very real financial cost. The deeper lesson is that New York punishes not only dangerous speed or reckless behavior, but also the small rule-breaking decisions drivers make when they feel squeezed by time. In 2026, that matters more than ever because city driving is full of stress, pressure, and split-second temptation. Smart drivers need to understand that not every wallet-draining mistake comes from a dramatic moment. Some come from a quiet, tired decision at one light, one lane, one intersection. That is how everyday impatience turns into official punishment. And once a driver starts treating bus lanes and red lights like flexible rules, the wallet damage can come faster than expected. Number 10. Repeat violations and the 24-month point trap. The final trap is not one single law. It is the way New York now connects multiple mistakes into one much bigger problem. This is where many drivers get caught off guard in 2026. They think in isolated moments. One ticket here, one stop there, one bad week, one rushed morning, one careless turn. But the system does not always see those events separately. It sees a pattern. And once that pattern starts forming, the financial pressure can grow far beyond what any one ticket would have caused by itself. This is the hidden engine behind wallet damage in New York traffic law. It is not always the first mistake that hurts the most. It is the second, third, or fourth mistake that proves the first lesson was never learned. What makes this especially dangerous now is the longer point look-back window. That means older mistakes can stay active in the system longer, giving repeat violations more power to damage a driver's record. A person may believe enough time has passed and that the earlier ticket no longer matters much. But then another violation happens, and suddenly the past comes back into the present. That is when the real panic begins. The driver is no longer just dealing with one fine. Now there is fear of more points, more costs, insurance pressure, license risk, and the feeling that the system is closing in from all sides. This is how ordinary mistakes turn into a long financial problem instead of a short-term inconvenience. The deeper warning is simple. In 2026, New York drivers cannot afford to think casually about small violations anymore. The danger is no longer only in the ticket itself. The danger is in how one violation strengthens the next one. A rushed habit, a repeated excuse, a mindset of it is only one ticket can quietly build a record that becomes much more expensive over time. That is why this final law trap may be the most important of all. When mistakes start stacking, the road becomes a system of accumulating punishment. And for drivers who ignore that pattern, the wallet damage can keep growing long after they thought the first problem was over. What makes these 2026 New York traffic laws so dangerous is not just the ticket itself. It is the system behind the ticket. A fine may look like a one-time punishment, but for many drivers, that is only the beginning. First comes the stop, then the points, then the insurance increase, then the extra fees, then the fear that one more mistake could push everything even further. That is how a normal driver can go from feeling in control to feeling financially cornered. And in a city or state where people already deal with high living costs, busy schedules, and daily stress, even one traffic mistake can hit harder than expected. The road is no longer just a place to drive. For many people, it has become a place where small errors can trigger long-term money problems. The deeper truth is that most of these laws do not trap only reckless drivers. They trap tired drivers, distracted drivers, rushed drivers, and overconfident drivers. They catch people who think one phone glance does not matter, One quick speed burst is harmless, or one old ticket is already behind them. But in 2026, New York is clearly showing that repeated carelessness comes with a rising price. This is not just about safety anymore. It is about financial survival. The people who protect their wallet will be the ones who change their habits before the system forces them to. That means slowing down earlier, paying attention longer, respecting every camera zone, and treating every traffic law like it has real financial teeth. So the biggest lesson from this list is simple. In New York, careless driving is becoming expensive. The rules may look ordinary on paper, but their impact can reach into your bank account, your insurance bill, your daily routine, and your peace of mind. And once that chain reaction begins, stopping it becomes much harder than avoiding it in the first place.